This episode is brought to you by Henry the Adjuster. Honesty when you need it the most.
So Elon, we know that this seems to be like a new woke agenda, right, inside the schools, and the ADL. So there's no place for hate. I was driving down the street today, and on West Glades Middle School, there's a sign on there from the Broward County School Board. It was a banner, right? And it says no hate. Lynn, can you pull that sign up?
Is it no place for hate? I think that's what it was. No place for hate.
They're pushing the agenda already on the schools, right? And the parents and everybody could see that. On the surface, it looks like it's no hate, right? They're trying to make it a better environment for the kids. They're not going to be bullying each other. I guess that's part of the theory. But really, deep down inside, there's a lot of woke curriculum being shared, right?
Yep.
So that's what's on West Glade School, and that's probably on a lot of the schools in Broward County. So tell us a little bit about what's going on. I mean, I know the bill that DeSantis passed, HB 1557. This is in direct violation of that, and the ADLs involved, and they're supposed to be an authority for many years on education, but it seems like they're taking another twist.
Yeah, so I mean, listen, there's a lot going on. First off, Broward County seems to always be, in the middle of corruption and wanting to be, in the spotlight for whatever reason. But, it started back when I threw this, if I may, just to sort of tell you how we sort of came about, figuring out all of this woke curriculum and how big of a purveyor the Anti-Defamation League is of this woke curriculum. But so we had that rally, the Protect the Children rally. And when we had the Protect the Children rally, again, it was me, a Jewish man, Moms for Liberty, who was led by a Cuban woman, and Gays Against Groomers. We had maybe 20 gay people there. And we all stood in solidarity to speak out against the sexualization of our children. And the ADL then smeared me and Gays Against Groomers and Moms for Liberty, calling us right-wing extremists, anti-LGBTQ hate groups, which couldn't be farther from the truth, right? I mean, we just want the children to be left alone. We don't have any problem with you loving to love who you want to love or be who you want to be. We're just trying to preserve the innocence of children and make sure they don't go down the dangerous path that could very easily lead to, medical mutilation and, things that these children can never come back from. So I took it personal, and I have a personal experience with the ADL, because not only did they smear me in Florida Fathers for Freedom, which I'm like, I'm a Jewish man, like, call me, let's have a conversation. You weren't at the rally and you're smearing us like we're some sort of, right-wing extremist bigots. And then what happens is every legacy media outlet then takes that and quotes it like it's the truth. So according to the ADL, the Sun Sentinel says Florida Fathers for Freedom is a right-wing extremist hate group. And then you see, NBC says it, and then the New Times says it. And the next thing you know, everybody who's reading about us no longer cares about the message, which is protecting children's innocence, which you would think is a cause that everybody could get behind. And if you were actually at that rally and you saw some of these people that were counter rallying us, I'm not sure they're not paid operatives. I mean, I'm not sure that
they probably are.
They're kids. They don't have kids. I take it as these people are literally just want to get mad about something, and maybe somebody paid them to get off the couch or leave their mom's basement. I don't know. But I can tell you that they are not parents. I'm standing for parents who have kids who are in school and just want their kids to learn how to read, write, and do math. And most of these kids cannot do that proficiently, and they've gotten way off path. And I think that is the main focus of parents. Right. So fast forward a couple of days, a lot of people who went to the rally went to the school board meeting, because all the while there's a lot going on here. The superintendent is on the hot seat and she's ready to get ready on the way out. And Brenda Pham, who is a school board member, came and spoke at our rally on behalf of the children. She had a great speech about how Broward County is second in the state when it comes to child trafficking. And really, that's what she went there to speak against and shed light on. And instead of applauding her, because there was nobody else at the school board that came to stand up for these children, instead of applauding her, they did the same thing. They smeared her and said, "You went to a hate rally? We heard Proud Boys were there." Well, I could tell you, anybody can come to the Fort Lauderdale beach, and I can't say who is against, child medical mutilation and teaching untruths in biology. We cannot control who does and who does not come. They could have been paid operatives for all we know, so they could have smeared us all, right? But nobody was there. In fact, we did an interview with Channel 7 where we stood shoulder to shoulder, me, Conservative Anthony, Lolly Jimenez from Moms for Liberty. We explained exactly why we were there. And, I think and that never aired for whatever reason. That was the only media outlet that came down to report on the biggest story of that weekend, and it did not air. So it was all hearsay. So when that happened, a lot of the parents that went were very upset that they were, smearing parents who stood up against that. And at the same meeting, a parent named Deidre Ruth, who I am very close friends with, I'd met her since the very first day when they were deciding on the mask mandates, and she went to a lot of school board meetings with me, and I became very close with her. And she was at the rally. I pulled my kids from Broward County School, so I don't go to the school board meetings like I used to when I was very vocal there. But she went there, and then she realized that they were getting ready to adopt this ADL, No Place for Hate curriculum. And knowing that the ADL had just smeared us, she wanted to look into it and say, what is this exactly? What is the ADL No Place for Hate curriculum, and what does it entail? And, are parents aware of the curriculum that's involved? And she really did a lot of digging. And, at that time, the ADL, a few days later, had come to my daughter's private school to speak to her and her class in first grade about, not bullying. And that sounds all good on paper, right? But when you start digging and you start to look at what exactly is in the curricula that schools are adopting, both private and public, this curriculum has been adopted by 300 schools in South Florida alone. And what the curricula, it's totally riddled with CRT, racist dividing, curriculum, and sexual radical ideology and they're encouraging teachers in their resource guide to have conversations that most parents do not want their kids having without them present, yet alone maybe even with them present. They're young. These are kids that are young as kindergarten. And to your point, Bill, it directly violates HB 1557, the Parental Rights in Education bill that prohibits teachers from talking to K through 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds about these very things. So when it got voted upon, Tori Alston voted nay, Brenda Pham voted nay, but everybody else shoot it right in. And the question was, and that a lot of parents and that I had was, does it violate laws? So, and you really have to look into, what the resource guide says. Like, for example, it said, Bill, to your point, I think it's almost like the Inflation Reduction Act, if you will. Right. Nothing to do with inflation. There's 1,000 other things in here that they sneak in. Or when DeSantis speaks out against, everybody was up in arms because he was like, we're going to strike down this African American history class. He wasn't striking down teaching, slavery or the hardships that African Americans have gone through, but there was something snuck in there. Queer studies, what does that have to do with Black history? Yeah. So that is a tactic that I'm starting to realize.
African queer studies.
Yeah, queer studies. And so, Mo, I mean, you're African American. You're a black guy. I mean, is that something that you want instilled in your children? No, again, nobody is
Absolutely
saying
not.
right.
It's got nothing to do with the history or anything I've done in history. So
what I am starting to see is the ADL is once we started looking into this, and you can go to their website and you can review the No Place for Hate curriculum. It is the ADLs become the biggest purveyor of CRT and this radical, transgender ideology, and schools all over the country, private too, are partnering with them, and this stuff is sneaking into the classroom. And in my opinion, it's having the exact counter effect to what they want. It's putting us all in boxes, right? Where in my era and in your eras, when we came up and we were taught to be color blind. Yeah. Everybody it deserves respect as long as they're respectful to you. You treat everybody the way that you would want to be treated. And that's the end of it, right? It's not today where it's like the stuff that the ADL is pushing is, if America is systematically racist, that, if you're black, again, you're born at a disadvantage. If you're white, you need to feel bad about who you are. And even if that was the case, even if like, listen, I'm not denying that there's not some systematic racism. I'm not denying that there isn't racism in this country. But what does it do for a young black child to tell them that they are at a disadvantage and that this country, the cards are stacked against them and they'll never be able to accomplish their dreams? Why not tell them, listen, even if it is hard, you can make it? That's what I would want my son or my daughter to be taught, is you can make it regardless of who you are. Don't let anything stand in the way. This is America. This is the greatest country in the world. And that's why people are flooding across the borders begging to be here. And, as far as the sexual stuff, Bill and Mo, and I think Lynn still, what really gets me is I am a practicing Jew. Okay. My father is from Israel. My mother met my father in Israel at Hebrew University. My stepmother is Jewish. I send my kids to Jewish school. I married a Jewish woman. I'm a practicing Jew, okay?
Through and through.
Through and through. The ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, was put in place to stop anti-Semitism. And they've completely lost their way, because when you talk about, first off, when you smear me, right? How is that? You're defaming me. I'm a Jew, and I hold, Jewish and American values, which are very much aligned. This country was built on Judeo-Christian values. How are you? So that's the thing. If the ADL, who has historically been an authority in what is and what is not anti-Semitism, and being an authority in Judaism, when you go in, and I always go back to this, the most basic fundamentals of Judaism are the 10 Commandments. And in the 10 Commandments, the 5th commandment is honor your father and your mother. But in that same breath, in the let's get it right using the correct pronouns excerpt of the ADL's No Place for Hate Parent Teacher book, resource guide, it states that parents should be kept in the dark. That basically it says, teaches teachers that if a child no longer identifies as the gender that they were born with, if they have a new name, a newfound identity, and they don't want you sharing that information with their parents, that you should keep that secret. How is that honoring your father and your mother? How does it align with Jewish values, who the ADL claim that they were actually, put together to protect?
It's crazy.
Also, kids how to lie too. Sorry about that, Bill. Go ahead.
No, it's crazy. And the funny thing about it is, when it's not funny at all, but when parents read the banner that are on these schools, it seems packaged, beautifully. We don't want to have hate, right? We're trying to teach everybody to get along. And that's where it stops. The messaging is clear enough in the parent's mind that, hey, they're doing something good here. Meanwhile, like you said with the bill, anti-inflation act, right? It's all riddled. It's terrible. It's terrible. And, you know, I mean, I understand they're teaching kids as young as kindergarten about pronouns inside this bill, right?
Yeah, I think that they are. They are. And again, this is a very, very, very slippery slope, because once you start, listen, our entire country, what made this country great, first off, was Judeo-Christian values. That's what it was built on. That's how we've had the success that we've gotten to. And that is why this is the greatest country in the world. Okay. But also, when you start going into, teaching kids these radical ideas at a very young age, when our entire language is built on feminine and masculine, our stores, our clothes, our roles. And when you start changing that, it causes a lot of chaos, right? Because our whole fabric of our entire country was built on, there's men and there's women. There's some men that are more feminine. There's some women that are more masculine, and that's perfectly okay. But, there's men clothing, there's women clothing. There's, in my house, I take out the trash and my wife cooks. I mean, I'm not saying that's the way it has to be, but what I'm saying is that when you start completely blurring the lines, instead of actually creating more harmony in this world, you're actually instilling chaos. Mm-hmm. And what that does now is, when you do it with impressionable kids, now you're starting to teach them untruths. Okay? Where, 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, when you say, men can't get pregnant, everybody is going to start looking at you like, what do you mean? Trans men can get pregnant? Yes. But that is, trans women can get pregnant or whatever. I mean, I'm confused myself.
I don't even know either.
Well, I mean, what it was, I don't know if you guys ever heard this term before, where it's like, he who controls the language controls the culture.
Yeah.
And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to change the language so they can do exactly what you're saying, Elon, control the culture. So that way, 10, 15 years down the line, you would look like somebody who doesn't make sense when you say men can't get pregnant. Correct. It's a fact, but by then the culture has already been shifted to a new fact.
Right.
That's a controlling.
You say these things enough, it becomes truth.
Yep.
And then what's really scary, though, and this is why I'm so passionate about it, is that when you start going down this slippery slope, it's what bathrooms do they use? What sports are they playing? Yeah. Right? And then who are you to say whether a person is actually trans or not? I can go into the girls' bathroom if I want to, right? I'm trans, I say. How are you going to tell me that I'm not, right? I mean, this is putting our women and our young girls in a lot of danger. And I think that is something that we really, really have to hone in and focus on, because it's not just confusing our kids, but it's opening up. Just because we're trying to be tolerant and we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, we're actually putting our children in danger, and we're taking away their sports. And what's very scary is it starts with the idea that you can change your gender, and it's being celebrated in so many different areas. Like Nickelodeon's, I just saw like their child of the year or whatever it was a trans girl. So now if I'm a little kid, I want to be trans. I want to be the Nickelodeon fan of the year. And it's all that's being celebrated. Nuclear families aren't being celebrated. Fatherhood isn't being celebrated. Motherhood isn't being celebrated. Being just a regular kid is not being celebrated. And kids want attention. Of course they do. So you give them the attention. Now they're confused. They think that they're a gender that they weren't born in. And then the parents are alienated because they're being instructed to keep them in the dark. So they don't even know really who their kid is anymore until it's too late. And there can be led down a path of mutilating themselves into going into these gender affirming clinics. They're growing, and they're going to be like McDonald's soon. They'll be on every corner. And what happens is that these kids are sold this euphoric dream that once they're convinced that they're the opposite sex, people as young as 12, I've seen in the state of Florida, are going down this path of medical mutilation, and they can never come back from it. Once that decision is made, it is made. And these doctors, they have no heart. They're not saying that this is wrong. I mean, it's so easy to get done now. It's happening in so many different places. And then, these children do it, and they're going to look back and they're just going to say, where were the adults? Where were the people that should have fought for me and say that this is wrong and I was just going through a phase or whatever, because now I can't even urinate correctly. Or now we're getting ready to have this event on the I think it's the 13th or 14th of the 14th of March.
14th of March.
Tuesday. It's at Galuppi's in Pompano Beach, and we're having, we're going to be speaking about, this curriculum that's entered schools. Moms for Liberty is going to be speaking about a lot of the books that they've gotten removed, and they're continuing to try to get removed because they're downright porn. And they don't belong in front of kids whatsoever. And then you have a gentleman from the Jewish Leadership Project who basically is saying, the ADLs lost their ways. They don't represent true Jewish values anymore. But and we're having, a couple people from Gays Against Groomers who are going to speak about, from a gay, and lesbian and perspective of why they don't agree with it. But the most powerful speaker who I think we're going to have is Scott Nugent. Have you guys seen What is a Woman? From Matt Walsh's What is a Woman?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. The guy who had his mutilation done when he was younger. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was born a woman and trans to a man when he was already an adult. And, he shows this huge scar that he has on his forearm where basically, they made him into a man, gave him all the parts and everything. And he basically, or she basically speaks out about how he was sold this euphoric dream, and now he could potentially, or the way he puts it, is going to die from the infections that this surgery has had on his body. And what he's saying is, no doctors warned me about it. It was all like, this is easy, this is going to be great for you. But nobody said that this has a 67% complication rate. And you likely are going to have a lot of, hardships with this. And nobody talks about that. What parents are sold is, your child identifies as another gender, and if you do not affirm that gender, that this child could potentially kill themselves. And as a parent, you don't want that. I've heard again and again, would you rather have, like, if your child was born a daughter and wants to turn to a son, they would say, would you rather have a son or a dead daughter? I mean, how is a parent supposed to take that?
That's a horrible sales pitch, man.
That was not the sales pitch, though.
And
that's a heck of a closing argument. Would you rather have?
And they push that, but nobody wants to talk about, well, what happens when they go down this path and their body doesn't function correctly, and what is that?
Still end up with a dead child.
Hormones.
Yeah, they pump them full of hormones.
No, those hormone things actually cause like osteoporosis and all kinds of complications outside of that. Reproductive system for both sexes. I mean, we're not prioritizing science anymore. You know what I mean? Like the science does say that these things are dangerous. They're killing the people, but they're not following the science. They're actually just, following the money.
They're following the money.
That's exactly right, Lynn. There's a dollar sign on their heads, and they're a marginalized group. And all of a sudden, something that you never heard of a couple years ago is like the biggest, discriminatory, like we're not giving them the gender affirming care that they so desperately need. And it's very, very scary. And I think that parents need to stop being offended. People need to stop being worried about offending people, I should say.
And really speak the truth.
And speak the truth and stand up for young, impressionable children.
Yes.
Because again, I know we spoke about this before, but this stuff is being pushed on them. I just saw somebody post about, YouTube Kids. You leave your kid in front of the tablet or their phone and they're on YouTube Kids. You think it's cartoons all day, but it's pushing this ideology on them.
Oh, trust me, I know.
And then it's in the stores, it's in their schools, and it's celebrated, right?
Everywhere. It's in the movies now.
Exactly. Yeah, Buzz Lightyear.
Every show, in every movie.
You name it. Yeah. And, what's happened now, guys, is, the schools, the politicians, they claim that they care about these children's mental health. But in fact, the policies that they are putting in place is it is actually exacerbating the mental illness. It's not only enabling it. So, only 2 years ago, if you were born a male and you think you're female, that is gender dysphoria. That is a mental illness. Now it's celebrated as bravery. Okay. So it's
now the whole fat shaming,
that as well.
Yeah.
But the kids, it's the kids that we are talking about, young, impressionable kids. And it's the adults in the room that should be the ones that are shielding our kids from this. Instead of teaching our kids to be proud of the bodies that they were born in, we are telling them that they could be born in the wrong body and to change it. What kind of message, sick, twisted message, does that send from an adult to a kid who's looking to an adult of somebody that likely has the answers? There needs to be more adults that are willing to say the right thing. This is a child.
Did you see Matt Walsh, like where he spoke in front of the Tennessee? I think it was the State House.
He was I've seen a lot of his clips. I'm sure I have seen it, but go ahead.
There's something about kids, their brains don't stop. They stop developing at 26. So before that, it could all be. It's very malleable. So what they want to do is, like, if they are going to make a decision as big as transing their sex or their gender, they really should do it after that. Any physical damage that they're going to do to their body, they should fully make that decision. But and they're trying to argue that whole thing, like if they don't start before puberty, then it's this and that and the other. But it's
pharmaceutical dollar signs.
They can't even get a tattoo until they're 18 without a parent present, but yet they can mutilate
themselves.
It's absolutely insane. I mean, we've come to a point now where, and then we want to take them to drag shows, and then it's just like, hello. I mean, can we just call it what it is? This is absolutely crazy. It's wrong. It's taking advantage of children. It's grooming children. It's sexualizing children. And here's a big point here. Okay. You start out with the fact that you can change your gender because you believe it's so. Can I be black now if I believe it's so?
I mean, if you want to.
Corporations.
We'll welcome you to the club, man.
Okay, well, Bo, I appreciate that. But my point is if it's gone to a point now where we're giving scholarships to Black, Indigenous, and people of color.
No, if you do that, then they're going to see you as being.
Well, then
I mean, they'll find a way to really hit you hard on that.
Now, or I'm trans Indian, right? How can you say that I'm not? or you're disabled. Yeah, I'm trans disabled. Absolutely, I am. You know, but what's really scary, and this is already happening. Okay, I mean, I go into I pay attention to the sexualization of children and some of these people that are speaking to children, and trans age is a thing now, where there's people who identify as children. Okay. So can now I identify as a 13-year-old and then date a 13-year-old? I mean, where does it stop? Because we keep talking about their truth. Where does that stop? Where does their truth
Madonna's
stop?
not part of that up there.
What's that?
I'm surprised Madonna's not part of that. She's like,
I'm sure she will be shortly, but
She's transing into something else.
We have an alien at this point, but we have to be grounded in truth. Because
reality, yeah.
When all truths go out the door, it becomes a very slippery slope. And again, who is to say that you aren't that? And that's what's so scary about it, right? So, but my main thing is it's the kids. So again, we're having this event. It's called Empower, which is empowering. Let me make sure I get this right. Empowering. Mindful. Point is, we're empowering parents to come to this event and really give them transparency into what's going on in the classroom and where these ideologies can lead to and how dangerous it can be. Because to your point, Bill, I think a lot of people see the no place for hate and they're like, it's great.
Yeah.
Or they say, we want to be inclusive of everybody, which we do. We should love everybody. But when it becomes dangerous and detrimental to kids, that's where we got to stand up. And I think a lot of parents are just not in the know. They don't know. And I think if they did, they would be more vocal. And this is what I am trying to do. That is Florida Fathers for Freedom's mission, is to mobilize parents to not be afraid to speak out, to empower them and give them a flat platform to say, you're not the only one who thinks this is wrong. You're surrounded by people who think this is wrong. And we will all together say that it is wrong. And together, our voice will be much louder so we can hold our school officials and school heads accountable, our politicians accountable, and not be afraid to say the honest truth, which is this should not be happening with children, period.
I agree.
I think the government is holding is not doing the right thing. So they are there to protect our rights. But that doesn't mean that they should not have us know what to make a decision on, right? Kids or young teens or women do not know the repercussions of abortion, much the same way they don't know about, transing, hormones, mutilation of body parts. Like, they don't know the repercussions of that. And the government's job should be to let them know. The same thing as vaccines, right? They should let them know what the vaccines do.
Yeah.
And then people get to decide on whether they want to take it or not. If it's good, you don't need it to be mandatory. People will take it if it's good, right? I mean, like, we don't have to be convinced to eat steak. Like, we like it, so we eat it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, we know it's good for us because it's delicious. Anyway, so same thing, same concept. Like, if we know that the vaccine's good for us, we'll choose it. If they believe that, if they know all the facts about transing and mutilation of body parts and all that, and they know that they can accept the repercussions, then if they choose to do it, then they choose to do it. Currently, we're being pushed to tell them to say, oh, if you're a girl and you say you're a boy, like, we should encourage that. It's like, that's not the role of the government to tell the parents that they're wrong for, like, refuting. I mean, like, think about something as small as like being right-handed or left-handed, right? Like, when you were a kid, I don't know who was left-handed, but I knew friends who were left-handed were forced to write with a right hand. And it was such a small thing that they can't accept. I mean, like, I don't know. It's just, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, and Lynn, I think an important point to make here is I don't think it's any secret. I'm a big supporter of Ron DeSantis. And you know, I think he's been very brave and standing up for children, which is why I've really gravitated to him so much. But I was a registered Democrat until like 2 years ago, like a year and a half ago. People change, not just kids, right? Your brain might fully develop at 26, but you continue to change. I mean, look at divorce. People get married as adults, and then they change, and people change, and then sometimes, you know, it doesn't work out for them anymore. Okay, so if I can change at 37 years old, at age 35, of course, a child can change their mind. And a child is looking to the adult to help them make the right decisions because they're impressionable. So, you know, to say that, you know, children haven't made up their minds, like, you know, you can't even trust them to, you know, pick out their clothes in the morning. So, I mean, let's be realistic here. There's adults that change their minds. And
no, so let me add a little bit to that in playing devil's advocate here, right? Because I spoke to several elder, like, you know, like seniors, like they're over 55, 60. And when I brought this issue up, they said, well, you know, times change. Things become important to different. And so that's why they tolerate it and accept it, because they feel like they're not keeping up with the times if they don't accept it. Like the whole logic part of what things make sense or don't make sense has gone out, right? It's like now it's about conforming. It's like following that trend and following the whatever it is that is, you know, the big thing. So it's like, yeah, we should follow that trend, you know, go with the flow. And that's, I think, is the issue. People stop using their, you know, stop doing the critical thinking. They stop with the, you know, with the logic and the rationale, and they just follow on. And that's what I think is super scary.
That sounds like what sheep do.
What's that?
That sounds like what sheep do. You know, they just conform and fall in line, and that's not what we do as human beings. And I mean, and that's why, again, they changed the language.
But so there's a few, right? Look at how many politicians we have, and like, you know, Elon mentioned Governor DeSantis. I mean, he is one in how many Republicans that actually did do something and do something for the people, protect the children, you know, all of that. Like, we have 50 governors in our country,
and he's the only one out here doing his job right.
So you got to think, like, you know, a lot of people want to kind of not, you know, not be abrasive. They want to stay in the lane. They don't want to, you know, run over any lines and not offend anybody, because they might not be liked, because, you know, the thumbs up on your posts are important. So,
but when you're talking about children, in my opinion, we can't, you know, tiptoe around it.
No,
right?
you can't.
I agree.
That's all we can't be afraid to offend people about. You know, I
think we could be afraid to offend people with their children, but I don't think we should be afraid to defend our children.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And, you know, so that's the main thing, is I think that a lot of these schools, they've really, you know, they've become like, there's so many manuals. You know, you started with the BLM riots, and they pumped a lot of money into schools, right? And a lot of the money went into teaching children, you know, one side of thought, you know, the left side. And that is, you know, now we're prioritizing. Remember now, less than 30% of these kids can read, write, and do math for their grade. But the main focus, and where a lot of money is being pushed from a lot of directions, from the ADL, from BLM, from our government, whatever, it's promoting children to be activists. And that's not what I don't care what it's. I don't want my kid to be taught to go to a DeSantis rally. I don't want them to be taught to, you know, that gay is a sin. I don't want that either. Right. I just want you to teach my kids fundamental education, because that's very important. You need to know how to read in order to function in the society. You need to know how to do math in order to function in the society and be successful. You need to know how to write. Those are basic fundamental education, and they're not getting that right. That is where the focus needs to be.
Yeah, they're not even focused nowhere near that. They're focused on everything else but that now.
Right. So, Bill, the question is, you're talking about all these different politicians. In my opinion, they're all bought and paid for.
Yeah.
Why is it? Just take a 10,000 foot level back. Why do we send our kids to school? To become educated. Okay, that's your job. Can our kids read, write, and do math? No, they can't. You are failing. It's obvious. Why is there not a focus on getting? I mean, this isn't just Broward County. This is a country as a whole. These are our future leaders. This is the future of America. You would think it would be a pretty big priority to make sure that our children are proficient in these areas. Nobody cares. But where they do care is turning your child into a left-wing Antifa activist. They want your kids to think that the police are bad, the country is built on racism, you can change your sex, and all these other radical ideas that are so far from what has made this country great. And we need to get back to, if it wasn't broke, why are we trying to fix it? Right? Everybody who's talking about, this is terrible and the country is great. I don't see them running to another country. I don't see them fleeing for their life. Come on. I mean, it's just not true. We gotta stop spreading these lies because it's not true. Because if it was, you would be out of here, right? I mean, when I hear somebody say that America is a racist country and they're saying that on a radio show or in plain daylight or in school, why aren't you being arrested? Why aren't you being persecuted? Why aren't you being lynched? I mean, like, if that is exactly what this country is, how are you able to say it without any repercussions? But if I say, I am banned on Twitter right now for a week because I said that men can't get pregnant. I said that these policies that Biden are pushing is instilling mental illness, and you're teaching untruths about biology, and it needs to stop. I'm kicked off Twitter, the freest platform that we have on social media, for a week, and I had to delete that tweet in order to get back on. I won't be on for a week. So, I can't even say that without being canceled, right? But you say all these other untruths and you're applauded. But we have to let's just look at it. I don't need anybody to tell me if indeed what you're saying is true, how are you able to say it without any huge repercussions?
You can't.
Because it's part of a bigger agenda, and they need the people to be confused, and they need right to be wrong and wrong to be like the agenda at play here has got nothing. It's beyond you. It's beyond me. It's beyond politics at this point in time, and that's what it is. But it's being guided through the politics, and that's the issue. But you and I will never be able to unravel that or uncover or unveil that to the world, and that's what our issue is, because we don't have the power to be able to highlight what's really going on here. We can only speak against it and hopefully not be canceled in the process. So
let me ask you, Elon, with what's going on with Broward County School right now, right? With this no hate, how do we get it changed? How do we get this curriculum out? What can we do as parents?
We've already filed a claim with the Florida Department of Education. There's currently an investigation going on. I know that the school is going through a little bit of a transition because they don't have their superintendent there anymore. Smiley is getting ready to come in, but in the meantime, they have to respond and show exactly what's in this curriculum, and if indeed it's breaking the law, it violates Florida statute, then I'm sure that the Department of Education in the state of Florida will come down on them because they've already bursted in the superintendent's door several times. But I think it's something to be learned from, Bill, because if we didn't say anything, if we didn't do our research, if we didn't bring it to their attention, if we didn't have the platforms that we have and we didn't scream as loud as we did, nothing would have happened. It would just keep on and keep on. So, that is the thing. And that is why we're throwing this Empower event on March 14th, is because we need to not only make sure parents are aware of what's going on, but then showing them that you take this information and hold these people accountable. Because if you're not aware, if you don't see what's going on, it's going to continue to happen. It's incumbent upon parents to be more involved in their children's curriculum than ever before, see exactly what's within it. And if there is something that violates Florida law, or if there's something that does not co-align with your values, you should know about it and you should scream about it. Because thankfully, we are in the great state of Florida where there is at least somebody who will lend an ear and will potentially do something. I had a protest in front of the Broward Center about the Christmas drag show. Okay. It was an all-age drag show. I went on every, news platform I could that would listen to me about how this is touring all around and how they're engaging with kids. That drag show, a day before it was supposed to happen, changed to 18 and over magically. So you got to apply the pressure.
Well,
And
for
then,
Broward County to even let that happen at all ages.
of course, I think everybody should be arrested. But,
Right.
Now DeSantis is taking away liquor licenses. Is that enough? Probably not. But the point is, nothing would have been done, even in the great state of Florida, if we didn't scream, if we didn't apply pressure.
That's right.
That's what you need. You got to be aware, and then you got to apply pressure. And if you can do the pressure in numbers, if all four of us tell everybody else, and we keep having, the political pulse, and it goes and it's streaming to everybody's home, and we do these events, and we're just making everybody aware of it, all of a sudden you got an army behind you that's all screaming, we don't want this.
Yep.
And things tend to get changed when you apply that much pressure. It's the squeaky wheel that gets the grease, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. That's right.
No, we can't let anybody. We can't let anything pass by. When they say it's something, you really have to look at it. I mean,
they will.
Every single bill, every single thing that you care about, a lot of times it's just on the surface that looks good, and then you dig deep into it, and it's just more of the same.
Yeah, and Lynn, this didn't just happen overnight. All this wokeism didn't just
exactly
in schools. Parents
been
were
embedded.
asleep at the wheel for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
Then COVID happened. Kids were locked down, and all of a sudden you start to see what is being talked about on these laptops. And now parents are, starting, they're like, huh? More and more people start showing up to the school board. More and more people start asking questions. They're like, uh-oh, we got to, the same tactic always. Elon's a bigot. At that time, I was a domestic terrorist. It's evolving. But you apply pressure because they don't want the exposure. They don't want it. But more and more parents are seeing what's happening, and we have to keep spreading the word. Because even the most tolerant ones, when you start talking about, the path that this can go down very quickly, and you start putting it right in their face, it goes from the very sweet, oh, we should love everybody and just be inclusive, to look what they're doing to our children. Are you okay with this?
Right. It's funny, when I was campaigning, my opponent, one of her biggest things was how entrenched she was in LGBTQ, however those letters go, community. So proud of all the work she's doing in this community. And these are the people that are writing our bills, right? And then they're passing our bills.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're right. You have to look at everything that's going on, and then you got to scream from the rooftops when these things are happening and get people.
You know what? The momentum bill is going in this direction, where it's like, it's easy to be an LGBTQ advocate, right? It's celebrated. It's like the greatest thing now. Yep. The tough thing is to go against the grain. So I don't applaud that person at all. I don't think that the LGBTQ movement doesn't need any help. Okay, they have plenty of help. Yep. They have a lot of money behind it. Who doesn't have help are the parents, who are really doing the right thing.
Or public school kids.
Yes. And so, it does take bravery, because, I don't believe a man can change to a woman. I don't think a woman can change to a man. It's physically impossible. It's an untruth in biology. I'll scream it from the rooftops. I'll get kicked off Twitter for it.
I'll be on the rooftop with you screaming.
Come on. Oh, I'll meet you there. But the thing is, like, 3 years ago, if you said, you go back to that kindergarten cop or whatever, where it's like boys have vaginas and girls,
No, yeah, don't say that one.
this is what it's happening to me.
Don't
now.
advocate this thing now.
Right, but back then it was like how cute, but how simple. Right now, you say that same thing, and you're spreading hateful,
hate speech,
sarcastic, terroristic rhetoric, and it's just we're living in a country now where that is built on untruths, because people are afraid to stand up for what is true. And listen, we need to get more people who are willing to stand up for the truth, because the truth is what's right, especially when it comes to children. And I don't care who you are. I am not going to stop trying to protect my children from growing up in a world where they can be successful and they will not be brainwashed into thinking untruths that can be very dangerous. And I think there's a lot of parents that feel the same, that are just a little bit too afraid. But what happens is, you look at the NHL, for example. The one gentleman didn't want to wear the LGBTQ pride shirt, and he took all the wrath in the world. But then nothing happened to him, okay? And he was applauded by many for doing that. Very easy now, where next it was the entire New York Rangers are like, we're not doing it. So it takes a couple, and then you get 10, and then you get 50. And then it's much easier because you're with a crowd where the ones who weren't willing to be the Florida Fathers for Freedom and the political pulses of the world are willing to say, you know what, I'll go hand in hand with Mo, Bill, Lynn, and Elon. Because I like what they're saying, I like what they believe, and it's not just me alone. Once you get enough people in numbers, very much like the vaccine, where if we all, or the masks, if we all said, we're not wearing the masks anymore, then every restaurant's going to close down that tries to make you wear one. It's the same thing. We cannot be gaslit or scared, because that's what the ADL is doing. That's what these groups are doing, right? It's like, wait, you don't want queer theory in your Black studies? What are you, racist?
You're a bigot. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you don't, and that's how they do. But we can't be deterred. And I won't be, and I know you guys won't be. And I'm just, we just got to try to galvanize the troops and try to turn this ship, back on the right path.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
There's a lot of work.
So, Elon, if people want to learn more about you, they want to join your crusade, how can they get a hold of you, and
absolutely
more information about your rallies? So
we are on Instagram at Florida Fathers for Freedom. We are on, we have a private Facebook group, Florida Fathers for Freedom. If you just search it, you'll find us. We're on Twitter, although I cannot post for the next week. And we're working on our website, Florida Fathers for Freedom. I
can't believe they're still doing that, even, after Elon Musk had taken over.
Yeah. It's, I'm with you there. But, we
got excited for nothing.
Follow us, because we're constantly doing rallies, we're holding events, and we're exposing and adding, transparency into to what exactly is going on here, and just trying again to empower parents. And so we're always, looking for, ways to get more parents involved, and we're not afraid to get in the forefront and fight, and we're looking for others to do that. So, reach out to our platforms, follow all of our events, make sure you're going to them, networking with other like-minded parents, and let's build an army. And you can always go to givesendgo.com/FFFF, Florida Fathers for Freedom. All donations go toward our cause. I don't make any money off of this. I put it all back into, events or whatever the case may be, trying to, again, right this ship and protect our children.
Great job. That's awesome.
Yeah, and parents and fathers everywhere appreciate your work you do, man. So
yeah, especially dads. Dads, I mean, that's the biggest thing, and that's why from the inception, why we started Florida Fathers for Freedom is there's a lot of mama bears out there. But again, back to the roles. dad's job is to protect the family. When a burglar comes to the house, hey, honey, get back there. I bring out the baseball bat and I see what's going on. It's the same thing here. You know, you've crossed the line with our most impressionable, delicate, you know, family members that mean the most to us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, fathers, we gotta be at the forefront. We gotta get out there with our shields and our swords and start, you know, kicking ass, taking names, and protecting our children.
Absolutely.